Hey, people. I went back to study that map that I showed a little bit of in that last movie. It was this map of the Isle of San Domingo. And I studied these maps. I could get a lot of information off of them because I understand some of this nautical stuff. And they have pictures and words, and it helps to figure out the old language. But on the top of it here was this Guy Fawkes. I didn't understand why Guy Fawkes was on there until I figured the rest of it out. So this is Guy Fawkes. This is what this represents. And so Guy Fawkes represents a Jesuit rebellion against Britain. And he got caught. Him and a bunch of his friends, they all looked the same. And they would dress the same, and they were planning to blow up Parliament. They had packed Parliament full of powder underneath in the basement, and the day before they were going to light it up, Guy Fawkes got caught. And so when they caught him, he went ahead and blabbed. He told all. He didn't deny anything. He said, hell yeah, we were going to blow up Parliament. He told them all the reasons why he was going to blow up Parliament. And so, he got quartered. They caught him and his buddies, and they made an example out of him. And so it was a Jesuit holiday, and they still celebrate it some places today, I believe. I think the Jesuits will celebrate it up in Britain. I talked to my Spanish friends, and they don't celebrate it. They haven't even heard of him. But there's a reason why he's on the top of here. This is the Isle of Saint Dominique. The G and the Q got turned around. And I noticed, in this Dominique, this M and this N, they're really showing out the ancient Akkadian writing in it. And of Isle of Saint Dominique of Espanol, the British, we read this as the Spaniel, and the Spanish and the French, they'll call it Espanol. And of, when I see this in the Hebrew or the Greek, I pronounce this of, and it appears that's what it is here, to see connected Espanol. The Isle of St. Dominique, to see connected Espanol, of Espanol. And decovert. It was D. And so I learned, D, when it's connected to the word, it means remove, decovered. Remove the covered. And covert, something you do undercover. Covert. When you see D like this, it's the. But when it's connected, it's to remove. Decovered. Of the year, of on, on is the sky, and that's how we tell time, is how the planets are turning, of on 1492, and so that's when it was found. That's when Columbus landed there, they say. You see that 4 is turned to a J, in some old writings and pictures. They'll say that J means 1092. So it's possible, that it was changed here. Parlays is Spanish. Parlay, when it's in one word, it means to talk. You heard Captain Jack, when they were fixing to kill him, parlay. And so if you're a pirate, you can claim parlay. It means, no, I get to talk to the captain before you kill me. Parlay. But when it's separated into 2 words like this, it's 4. P-A-R is like F-O-R, 4. For this Spaniels, for les, for those Spaniards, as I read this in the Hebrew, L-E-S, of these, of this Spaniels. To dress for, to dress, made up for. And this is initial of Nathan. Nathan de Fur, and it was an old cartographer, French cartographer. The geography of So, S.A., his Majesty of Catholic. And so, see majesty, ma, that which is just, from jest, and the Catholic, that's where you word cato, meaning under, cata, under, category. So jest, that's where a jester come from, the joker. And a joker will jest, the jester will jest. Something done for amusement, a joke. And so, Catholic, comes from the Greek, Catholicos. Catho, on the whole, in general. And so that's spelt with a tet, as in to collect, the K-A-T-H-O-L. And ecos, is added to a noun and stems a form of adjectives of or pertaining to, in the matter of, in the whole of the matter, in the whole of the manner too. There's more to this story. In 1474, Toscanelli, he had already had this mapped out. They imposed this American. He didn't have all this, but this was all mapped already. And we'll see this on other old maps. But Toscanelli's notions of the geography of the Atlantic Ocean, shown superimposed on a modern map. This that's darker colored is what he had mapped, which directly influenced Columbus' plans. So they say Columbus made 4 trips. And, every one of his trips, he came straight over here to San Domingo in Cuba. He wasn't looking for no North America, because the word was already out about it, and we're going to see it in older writings. And then you see in this trip in the blue, he hadn't got word about Bermuda here. Maybe he saw Bermuda on the way in here, and so when he was on the way back, he was zigzagging around looking for Bermuda again. They try to put us off as an explorer, but these aren't trips of an explorer. These are all direct trips to a point. An explorer would have followed coastlines. They say the blue is his first trip, where he stayed on top. But the next 3 trips, all of them, he made a point to go over here to this point at San Domingo. You can see where he came in around Trinidad. He went and checked on some things, and then he left here, and he was heading straight for San Domingo. He knew where he was going to. And you can see it here in this 1507 map, where they had already managed to change the name of Amerigo Vespucci. They already started to change at 1507. But this is San Domingo down here. And this is Cuba here, called the Isabella Insula. So this is probably the Mississippi River mouth here in the Chandelier Islands. And this area over here, from Florida up, is called the Terra Ulteria Incognita. Ultra. The Ultra Incognita. The lack of adequate reference points. The fact of keeping one's identity hidden. From Latin incognitus, to remove, of cognitus, of known, not known. But if it's not known, how could it be drawn and mapped? The coast is already mapped. So it seems to mean more like something they wanted to keep a secret. It was not supposed to be known. And so, to dress for, that means you put the for, for to dress is the one who dressed it, the one who created this. The geographer of for His Majesty Khalid at Paris. So everything about this is just screaming coded information, but this is the biggest one here, the Catholic of Paris. And ain't no Frenchman gonna spell Dominique with a G. Saint Dominic is spelled with a Q. Dominique. Shade and a gender de la auteur, the son-in-law of the author, sur le point, on the bridge, Notre Dame. That sounds like an address. Of the sphere royale. You know, sphere is the ball, and the royale, Roy, is the king, and Al is the god, you know, the god king, royale, in 1723. So that's when this was done. This date up here is just telling when it was discovered. But this is the date when the map was drawn, 1723. And so you can see these the locals, where they wearing boots and red dye, and that's what was expensive. That's what they're coming to get. And they smoking that weed, them Haitians. And it appears these guys are spearing turtles over here. And so they're dressed like crewmen. You know, they don't look like a Haitian Indian. And so he's got some of the islands mapped out here. And this is called the Isle of the Turtle Island. So it appears in that picture that they're in between here spearing turtles. You know, you can see them. And it looks like there's a large fort built here. And so you pick up the words for capes and points and the cul-de-sac. That's seems to be a French word. And Saint Dominique's over here, and it appears to have, it doesn't look, usually they put a Christian cross on top of all the maps when you see, you know, it's claimed by the Christian to have a Christian cross, but this is an Orthodox cross here. And this looks like an Aztec star. And you see this island here, Catalina Island, and then this is the Isle of Savon, of soon the Rendezvous, to meet up of the Filibusters. The Filibusters are like holdouts, the rendezvous of the Filibusters. So filibuster is a French word, and its meaning come from in the 18th century. It was first applied to pirates who pillaged the Spanish colonies in the West Indies. West Indies, that's the islands down there south of Florida. In the mid-19th century, the term denoted for American adventurers who incited revolution in several Latin American states. It's filibuster. So that was down in the 1800s when the Americans was down there trying to incite revolution in order to take it over. And so this was the rendezvous point of the filibusters. So this is Saint Dominique down here, and it's deep water all around. This is what, 15,000 feet. You know, 1,500-story skyscraper. And it's deep on this side too. 25,000 feet to 10,000. 25 here. And so this would be Filibuster Island here. And it looks like palms, coconut or pineapple farms here and here. And on top of it, you see these circles. This is what it looks like when ancient cities grow over. If you look at down South Africa, you'll see them all over. Coconuts, coconut palms. And so down here, this is the scale, is what we would read this at. In the French is shell, the shell. And so that tells me that the ancient word was probably spelt with an X. You know, the French went with the Latins and they turned the X into the CH. And the British read the X as a S or TS. The scale. Vengeance sink 25 leagues. Levies, that's L-I-E-V-E-S. That's French for leagues, marine leagues. You know, on land and in the water they have different length. And league is about 3 miles. This is like about 75 miles. So you probably got, 25, 50, 100, just over 300 miles wide, this island. And then set it, this island, est a. ESTA is, but when it's separated like this, it means is at. The A is at, same as is up here, at Paris. Is at 17 degrees, 38 minutes of latitude. And latitude's really easy to figure out. All you gotta do is shoot the North Star, and you figure out your latitude, just with one star. It's real easy. And then this is different. This is ESTA, and this is ETA. ETA is not estimated time of arrival, but it's different because you have to know the time to figure out your longitude. And so this means was. It means was because it's changing all the time. Was 306 degrees, 30 minutes of longitude. So they got this 17 minutes, 17 degrees, 38 minutes pretty accurately. You can see it shows right down here, and it's right here on this point, 1738. But as to this 306 degrees, 30 minutes longitude, nobody used that system. That's called the Ptolemaic System. And this is the only map you see it on. Everybody else starts with a 0 point at the prime meridian, and then they count in each direction, 10, 20, 30 to 180, 10, 20, 30 to 180. But this is the only map you see that on. It's called the Ptolemaic System. And it's got a bunch of information on it, but the first thing you do is you look down here at the Universalist cosmography. Cosmography, it means the whole cosmos together, what has to do with the Earth and the stars, and how they all fit together. And so you can't trust all the information. You get all these maps, because a lot of it is talking about the stars that everything on Earth is associated with. And as for this Amerigo Vespucci, here it's America, America, and the Vespucci, Pucii. And this is called the 1507 Waldseemüller map. And you can see here, it's Amerigo, Rigo Vespucci. And here it's Americus. They're changing it quick. And it's said that he participated in at least 2 voyages. He was a cartographer. And so he had several aliases here. And it says that Amerigo Vespucci was the 3rd son of Nastigio Vespucci, a Florentine notary. So his immediate family was not especially prosperous, but they were politically well connected. Amerigo's grandfather, also named Amerigo Vespucci, served a total of 36 years as Chancellor of Florentine government, known as the Signora. So he described in his voyages a bunch of blonde-headed, naked white people with haircuts. In a letter addressed to Florentine, dated 1504, published the following year, purports to be an account of Vespucci of a voyage to the New World departing from Spain on the 10th of May, 1497, and returning on the 15th October in 1498. This perhaps most controversial of Vespucci's voyages. His letter is the only known record of its occurrence, and many historians doubt that it took place as described. Some question the authorship and the accuracy of the letter and consider it to be a forgery. Others point to inconsistencies in the narrative of the voyage. particularly the alleged course starting near Honduras and proceeding northward for 870 leagues. Of course, it would have taken them across Mexico to the Pacific Ocean. But it seems, he was a writer, and he was trying to sell books, and he making up all this fantasy. What was called his grandfather's tomb. It says that it was here in 1471. And you see, this isn't Amerigo here. This is his Amerigo. You see the A goes with the S here. His Amerigo Vespucci. And you see the Vespucci is spelled different too. And so a Vespa is a wasp. Wasps were the ancient secret service of the Egyptian kings, the wasp, the Vespa. And that's what you're looking at here is a black sash on a breastplate. And so Amerigo is playing with words, as in is happily go. But mare is oceans, the Amerigo. So Amerigo, the wasp, and Chio, Vespa is wasp, and Chio is that is, and it kind of means, what the wasp does. The wasp stings, Chio with what, or that is what the wasp does. It stings. He Amerigo Vespuccio, to do the stinging. Happily to go do the stinging. Poster, you see this is a T-E. Poster is poster is what you leave behind. Your posterity. What is left behind, Amerigo to sting one. And the posterity is so. And then Suis, S-U-I-S is a pig, or Swiss, S-W-I-S. But this isn't a name. This is a logo. It's a picture that has a meaning, and this is a motto. The motto. So he Amerigo Vespuccio to sting somebody. And the posture is pig. And then the date is 1450, 60, 71. And as to landing on Plymouth Rock, there was no such thing as Plymouth Rock till everybody there was dead. It's stamped on this rock at 1620, but that didn't happen. 195 years later, in 1715, is the first known written reference of the rock. 1715, described as the town boundary. But the first documented claim that Plymouth Rock was the landing place, 1741, 120 years. There's nobody alive to see it. And they moved the rock in 1774 and broke it. And so they probably chipped this date in around 1774. If the Great Rock was described as the town boundary records, you wouldn't move the rock. It's against the law to move a boundary marker. That's been law for thousands of years. And so cosmography is the science that deals with general features of the universe, including the Earth. The branches of cosmography include astronomy, geography, and geology. So in this Ptolemaic system, in order to figure out what this is, subtract this from 360, and it's going to leave you 53 and a half degrees. There's 60 minutes in a degree, so 30 is a half, 0.5. So it's going to leave you 53 and a half. If we look over here about San Domingo, we see longitude here is about 6970. So we're off, 17, 18, depending on where it was. Like I say, if you don't have a watch, a good clock, the way you'd figure longitude, you had to shoot the moon and stars and get your time from the moon, and so you could get off a degree. But this is there's 18, 20 degrees difference. That's because in this old Ptolemaic system, they move. Everybody's got their own prime meridian, and we've got it set now on the Greenwich time. But back in ancient times in this Ptolemaic system, it was here on this Tenerife, and it's because it's got this huge volcano on top of it. It's just wise, to put your markings on whatever's tallest where they can see them when you're leaving out the med. You can see the elevations over here on top of this volcano. You're 12,000 feet, and if it's burning, you really got a marker. But this was known as where the gods. This is probably your old Mount Olympus. This is where the gods and the kings would come spend the winter, because it's like Hawaii. They didn't have winters. But this is in the Canary Island. You can see it sits at 16 degrees. So that 16 degrees will kick this number back down and subtract it from there, down there around that 53, which is this 306 and a half from 360. It's 53 and a half. So the way you get this accurate, back before the ship's chronometer, you figure out what time it is. It's real easy to figure out your local time. You look at any of the stars and figure out your local time. And then you try to figure out what time it is at your prime meridian, whatever prime meridian you're working off of. And you would use a Jacob's staff or a sextant, something like that. An octant. And that's what's going on with this cross on top of the building. This is an observatory. So on the ship you have logs, that tell you where stars are going to be, what star is going to be the first one to rise that morning. And so you figure your time real quick, your local time. But you use the moon and those same stars to figure out what your prime meridian time is. There's 360 degrees to go all the way around. And the moon goes around every 29 and a half days. And so it's going to move 12.2 degrees per day. And so in a 24-hour day, that it's going to move a half degree. Every hour, the moon is going to move a half degree. And so with a real good sextant, to get it fairly accurate, you can get within the minute. And so what you're doing is you're figuring out what time it is at that particular time on the prime meridian, on the Greenwich time. And then you figure your time is, plus 6 hours. And that'll tell you, where you're at, where your longitude on the globe is at. And the best, in the ancient times to do this, the best way to do it was at a lunar eclipse. And you didn't even need any instruments. And you could just look up for a lunar eclipse. And if you know the math behind eclipse, you can figure out when an eclipse was going to hit. And you can see here April 1492, there was an eclipse that came full right on across here in April 1492, April 26. And so all these sailors, they knew how to figure this. So they say that Columbus left in August of 1492 with 3 ships. And he knew exactly where he was going. He came down here where this eclipse ran through. And so ancient times, the sailors would pull up where they know where an eclipse is going to hit, and they would tell the natives, I am the god of the sun, and I will turn the lights out if you don't fill my boat up with slaves and gold. and they'll give them a sample of it, and they'll turn the light out for a couple minutes, and everybody freaks out. The king tells them, "Hey, go get all your gold and bring a load and fill these ships up." He says, "I'll be back for more." So he knew exactly where he was going. The eclipse come through at April 26. He went back, and he came back 6 months later to collect, after they had had time to go collect all the gold and slaves. And then in all these trips, he would go back to his San Domingo and stash his gold. And then he returned to Castile in the early 1943, bringing a number of captured natives with him. He had his gold stashed, though. And so you can even spot these eclipses in the King James Bible. And this is one of the easiest things to find. And it's called All the Money. All, cul, and then money, ips cusp, the clips cusp. And there was no food, however, in all that region because the famine was so severe. The lands of Egypt and Canaan had been exhausted by the famine, and Joseph collected all the money, the clips cusp. Clips cusp is the word for money. And you see it here, the KL with a tack after it. And so it tells me to read this backwards and forwards. KLPS. Clips, ka, give the cusp. The clips give the cusp. This is a cusp here. Eclipse cusp. You have a cusp, the definition is the point where two arcs meet. It's a cusp. You have two cusp here. And so you'll see it spelled a little bit different. So when it doesn't have the cul in front of it, it's to pass, give the cusp. But here in 2 Kings 12:13, you hear this call with a vav and a yod in front of it. And it's to KLI, and then backwards and forwards, PS, to clips, cusp. The articles of silver, the cusp, the money. The men pass the cusp. They passed the money. And that's where the money was made, if you knew how to read the eclipse. When they brought him articles of silver, the clips, KLIPS cusp, the clips cusp, the eclipse cusp. So it seems this ETA has evolved to mean was, because they no longer use this eastern to, and it's where you start at your prime meridian and count around to the east back to the 306, the eastern to 306. So if you wonder what all this has got to do with Guy Fawkes, in the last movie I posted a new revelation, the magician's staff, masons and magic. I showed where this word, the stock in the store, from son and mason, we're in the same category as a saint. From Santi, my staff, my saints. And so what you're looking at here is lies of, L meaning of, lies of the saint, domain Jew. The domain Jew. Jew, G-U-E. G-U-E, the Jew is said to mean the back. But it's the base word for body. Out of his back is what they say, but King James says of the body. And you can see it here in the spelling G-U-I-E, and everything spelt with the G-U-I are bodies. Bodies, the carcass. And you see it in all these spellings, most of them start with a B here, in Jew, in the Jew, it, in Jew. And so, lies of the saint, domain, body. The domain is the top. Everything underneath you is your domain. This is the Jew. He's talking about the face. So this doesn't always mean Guy Fawkes. It means the picture on the top, the body on the top. And then it repeats this number 53 right here. And of the Spaniel and the D cover it, and LAN of on. So the on is the knowledge of the cycles, 1492. And so the ones with the knowledge of the cycles were the sailors, and they use a 24-hour clock. And so when it's 1492, it's 12, and then it's 1300 at 1 o'clock, and 1400 at 2 o'clock, and at 1459, then it goes to 60, it's 3 o'clock, and 92 is 3:32, or 1532. 1492 is 1532. So to a sailor, time is a degree. It's movement of the heavens around. And in a 12-hour day, the sun goes from one side to the opposite side. The stars, everything moves around 180 degrees. And so over here at 1532, every 15 degrees is 1 hour. So you got 12, 1300, 1400 at 210, 1500 at 225. So there's 60 minutes in every 15 degrees. And so every minute is a quarter of a degree. In the same way how they check the time from the moon compared to the stars. And so that quarter of a degree times that 32 minutes will give you 8 degrees. So you're at 225 plus 8. That's going to bring you up to 233. And so that's the opposite. 180 degrees from that is this 53 again. 233 is 53 degrees from 180. 10, 20, 30, 40, 53 degrees. If you zoom on out here and you go to the other side where it was charted on the edge of that map, this is the Galapagos Islands, and this is where it's covered with turtles and strange creatures because they evolved here. They're not like anything else. And you find this little island over here called Guy Fawkes Island. Oh, Guy Fawkes. And if we pull a measure from old Guy Fawkes Island over here to about at the 69 and 17, it's the route to the Panama Canal. Over here at Fort Sherman. That's where you come in the Panama Canal. The Spanish started to build it, and then they passed it over to the French, and they couldn't finish it. But this is the whole purpose of all these trips over here. They were looking for a shorter route to India, and this was it. And if you mark here at Guy Fawkes Island, and you run this line out at 53 degrees, it's going to bring you over here to the mouth of the Mediterranean. And if you bring it on out, keep on going at 53 degrees, it's going to bring you right back here to Jerusalem. That's what this is all about, was this island switching hands from the Spanish to the French in 1723. It was the new French base station. The Spanish weren't all that skilled at engineering. The French were better engineers. The Panama Canal, Canal de Panama, an artificial waterway in Panama, connects the Atlantic with the Pacific, cuts across the isthmus. One of the largest and most difficult engineering projects ever undertaken. In Colombia, France, and later the United States controlled the territory surrounding the canal. France began work in 1881, stopped because of engineering problems, and a high work mortality rate. They was all dying of malaria. The United States took over in 1904. The earliest record relating to the canal in 1534, the King of Spain ordered a survey for a route through the Americas in order to ease the voyage of the ships traveling between Spain and Peru. In 1668, the English physician and philosopher Sir Thomas Browne speculated in his encyclopedia work of pseudodoxia. The pseudodoxia. Doxia, which that last movie is the truth. The pseudo, like as a pseudonym, another name for the truth. Pseudodoxia, another name for the truth. And he speculated that some of the isthmus had been eaten through by the sea and others cut by the spade. If policy would permit, that the Panama and America were most worthy the attempt. So if you want to use this map to do some treasure hunting, I would start over here at this Moucher, 4 of Louvre, of I, which is on bank of this sable and rocks, the gravel, the sand and rocks underwater. Louvre is slanted slats, to cover the light from a window. And this looks like the Louvre. And it's 25,000 feet deep here. And then it comes up to 23 feet. That's a hell of a drop off. There'll probably be some good fish in there. And it runs shallow. There's some really shallow spots across here. In the Navidad Bank, like I say, it's 7,000 foot here and comes up to real shallow. This was called the Silver Bank, 20 foot. I imagine they call it the Louvre because it probably sunk a lot of ships that hit this thing and they were in deep water. The Moucher Bank, though, this is probably the one that gets the most of them. You're coming from 11,000 foot and then 53 foot, 2 foot, 1 foot deep, and that's the Moucher. They'll say in translator, the Moucher is a handkerchief. But a Moucher is somebody who ain't never got nothing and living off of somebody else is a Moucher. In the 4 of Louvre, there's 4 of them. Of I think this should be a O here. Of the I, quiesced, which is a bane, and that was probably supposed to be a sea. It's in a bank of sand and rocks underwater. Yep, all the gold that pulled through here, old Moucher probably got a bunch of it. It's thousands of foot deep, and then there's spots where it's 1 foot deep. Alright, I'm gonna cut this off here. Good day.